medium near, we're talking about 1 to 2,000 tons a day. And that gives us a value of something like $250 million of sales a year. This is our vision, this is our business proposition. So what we want for the biorefinery is not to affect your production. So we still get the $250 million of sales a year, but what we like to do is, without affecting the process, to add some complementary products to the one our partners already made. So basically here you notice that we just increased by 10% the amount of fibers and of pulp that we get for the products. And for that we're going to make some, for example, bioactive paper, nanocellulose, carbon fibers, chemical and so on. And to elevate, to lighten the recovery furnace, we're going to recover the lignin for carbon fibers. So that's basically the vision. Good. Biorefinery. Is it new? No. It's been on for 10 years. So what have we learned from this decade of experience? The first one is the customers love everything that is green and sustainable. However, they will not pay more for that. The second is we cannot rely on subsidies and the national regulation, because as the government changes, so does the regulation. And again, Australia is a good example. We went from one government with carbon credit to the other, and it all disappeared. So we cannot make a 25 years investment on that. The third one is international treaties and regulation. This is highly political. Let's just think about NAFTA, the Paris Accord, and NATO. Just one word, Trump, and everything can change. So we cannot rely on that. Also the product. What option do we have? Basically, we have two options. Either we produce some high-value products, but a small market, or large market and no-value commodity. So go from a commodity to another commodity, or very specialized and we can easily saturate the market. That's what we have to choose. And the risk, acceptable risk. How do we minimize risk? And typically, either we go for a new market or for a new technology. But very seldom the company will go for both, so it's a choice. Good. So this is how our institute, the Australian Institute, tackled that. We have three platforms. The first one are interface and diagnostic. The second is cellulose, nanomaterial, and composite. And the last one are the green chemistry and sustainable process. What is coming? Let's go for one more. Good. For the diagnostic, I'll just give you a little flash. We're commercializing a bioactive paper that type your blood. And basically what you notice is all the work was done 8 years ago. So why does it take so long? I will give you a little video. Can you please help me here? We're going to see 2 drops of blood. If you don't like blood, close your eyes for 15 seconds. So what we do, we put blood over bioactive paper. We wait for 30 seconds, 1 minute. And after we're going to wash it with a solution. And what we have is on the paper, we inject the antibody A with the letter A, B with the letter B, and D for the pause. And what we have, if your blood is specific to the antibody, you form some aggregate, and we use paper as a filtration. That means the individual cells just go through, the aggregates are retained and form the ink. And therefore, that's how we print. Very simple. However, there's a lot of hidden technology to stabilize the antibody, which costs much more than the paper. And here the name of the game is to be able to keep it for a year. How do we do that? For that we need a bit of resource, and we take advantage of our synchrotron. So across the street we have a synchrotron, and also the nuclear reactor for the small angle neutron scattering, reflectometry, and so on. And I will not elaborate with that. I'll just show you what it can do. Wonderful. That's just one curve, and basically this is neutral reflectometry, and what we look is the intensity as function of the Q vector. Basically, we're looking at the thickness of a sample, and the more waves than you have, the thinner it is, the higher the amplitude, the smoother it is. So here what we have is very easy. The green is the deuterated cellulose, and on that we put some antibodies. And we see a little shift, so we know we have something, and then we can calculate, and here this is really nanotechnology. We have a cellulose film of 20 nanometers. On the top of it, we put a layer of antibody that is 13 nanometers. And this is in a way effort to understand and control the morphology of the biomolecule, to control the functionality. But that's enough with that. Let's focus now on more the traditional biorefinery. We were just successful to get a national hub of industry transformation. So this is $7 million over 5 years with quite a few partners. And what we want is to transform the Australian pulp and paper companies into biorefinery. And for that we have two platforms. The first one, the nanocellulose application. The second one, are the chemical. And you can see we have a series of projects, and they are distributed all over basically on that. Good. What is our strategy? Try to go for the next one. Wonderful. Good. So we need to be strategic because we cannot do everything. So here I plot the value of the product as a function of the number of tons. And basically our business for paper is roughly $1,000 for $1 million a ton. That's what most mills do. We can have the pulp, the sugar, and the energy, but we really need the commodity at the low end. I show one example of bioactive paper that is rather $10 million for a few tons, and we have another example of flavor compositol. But these markets are small, so you can produce a few tons and you can saturate the market. So basically the vision and strategy is to go for the in-between. We would like to have some materials and some chemicals that are in the $2 to $200 a kilo of value. And that's what we have here, and our two platforms are the nanocellulose and some selected chemicals. So let's have a look at that. So, wonderful. This is just to show basically the strategies for each project. We try to see where we are in terms of product, time to market, and volume. And what we target is basically, it's good to make nanocellulose, but so what? Is to really target the end use and work back way. And in Australia, we're very strong in biomedical, in food, and in industrial products or process. So that's where we try to connect the application directly to the market. Good, so we'll show you a few examples. Wonderful. Nanocellulose production. We heard a bit of that here. And if I can do it, yes. Basically, we use the process of Professor Isogai, Arika Isogai from the University of Tokyo. So we simply take the pulp, fiberize that in the simplest expression. Then we do a tempo oxidation that will kind of basically swell and liberate the hydrogen bomb. And we do the homogenization, so 1 to 3 passes, and what we have, we do the AFM, we have these beautiful fibers. So nothing new, Professor Isogai did all the work. What is new is here. What we're interested is to develop application, and for that we really need to understand and control the nanocellulose. And here we use the gel as application. So basically, this is the work of Liza, and we look at the effect of the solid content, charge density, pH, salt, and the type of pulp, on the hydrogel properties. And hydrogel, basically we're talking about 0.1 to 3% solid content. So what it means is you're selling water. You sell between 99.9 to 97% water. So we're not talking about weight, we're talking about value, which is a different paradigm also for our industry. So I give you one example. A question we had is we have two types of pulp in Australia. Can I make the same nanofibers out of the different pulp? So what we did, we took some never dried eucalyptus bleach, softwood pyrrhodiata, and we processed for the nanocellulose, and you can see here basically the width of the initial fibers. You see that yes, the eucalyptus is much narrower than the pine, and it's much shorter, excellent. But after that, for the nanocellulose, what is produced is roughly the same size. So we can do the same type of nanocellulose independently of our source of fiber. Very precious. That's give or take, there's a bit of difference, but this is money. Good. So let's use it. And let's go back to biomedical. And this is the work of Rodrigo. What we wanted is to develop some new application of nanocellulose in existing and expanding biomedical application. And we have three. I will present you two. The blood diagnostic, another one, and the 3D culture of cells. I'll do that very briefly. So basically, if I need some surgery, we will test my blood to see what type it is. And the way it is done is you have a little column, a little cartridge, this is here, that is filled with a gel. And typically it's polyacrylamide, these are little beads. And at the top of that you put the antibody. If your blood is specific to the antibody, it forms a little clump, and when you put in the centrifuge, it stays at the top, giving you a bar at the top. If it's not specific, the cell will go through and form a little bar at the bottom. Guess what? We did the same with nanocellulose, and not only we can do it, but we can do it better. And the line is very sharp, and there's no in between, and we can even stabilize the cell. This is the positive, the negative. We can control the size of the cells. And the way we do that is we really learn to control the rheology. And a little bit advanced, we will control the G prime, G double prime, the viscous and the elastic component to really know to do what we want. We can chemically treat, we can cross-link and so on. So that's basically what we've been doing. Let's go for another application. This is from also Rodrigo. Heaven forbid, if I have cancer, what we will do, we'll take a little sample of my tumor and we're going to grow it. And the way it is done is typically we put that in the gel. We want to know what type of cell we have, and then we can try all kind of oncology for that, what works the best. And what is important is the ability to work on the cell. So we want to grow the cell, separate, and so on. And to grow, they need to be cut in a cocoon, they need to be in a gel. So we develop technologies such as when you heat at body temperature, it's a gel, it's solid. And when you centrifuge at 4 degrees, it's a liquid. And in that, we grow some cancer cell from intestine. So it's already working. Let's move on. I'll present you another example, basically, of nanogel for superabsorbent. What we want is to have a completely disposable, biodegradable diaper. And what we does now is the superabsorbent. But there's a good news. We can do that out of nanocellulose gel. And this is what Lala has been doing. So let's just show the concept. So what we do is we form a nice gel that we can easily do. We're going to freeze it. And here what I want is to control the structure of water. I will control the freezing rate to have either as a glass or as a crystal. And that's what I do with the control. I'm going to freeze it. And after that, I'm going to measure my superabsorbent. And I'll show you some results. So basically, this is how it looks. And you see this is at the microscope. It's really a network. You can really see just want to get water hydrated and transport water. And we already achieved something like 110 gram of water at some gram of superabsorbent. But the base is in saline, it's very efficient. And with technology, we can work up and down. That's the second example. Let's talk about chemical. Basically, the business proposition for chemical has been to take this very nice crystalline fiber, and if you want to do ethanol, you do a treatment, you put some enzyme, you get the glucose, and you ferment to ethanol. And if you want some chemical, reduce and redo it. Does it make sense? No, absolutely not. Why? We have a pure default structure. The lignin is polyphenol. It's very difficult to synthesize. This is a cyclic C6 molecule, the glucose, extremely difficult to synthesize. Why don't we take advantage of that for our chemical? And that's what we try to do here. So I'll show you one or two examples. The first one is the work of Lionel, and what we want to do here, let's try again. Wonderful. Is to use the lignin. Typically in our business, we burn lignin for energy. So what I want is to take this fraction of lignin, or 10 to 20%, and to make selective chemicals. So this is how I look at lignin. So basically, lignin, you can see these are 3 monomers linked by 6 types of bonds. How about if I can selectively cut each of these bonds? What can I do with that? So this is vanillin, and if I put each of these bonds, these are all the chemicals I can get. Isn't that interesting? Don't you recognize some interesting ones, just vanillin and so on? And these are very difficult to synthesize. Great, this is a vision. Let's try to do it. One way to do that is to use enzyme, but enzyme got one type of bond. So what we tried is with a cocktail of enzyme. And we will play a little bit with that. And out of that, these are the molecules we've been able to extract looking by a 2D NMR. Good. So why do we do that? What type of market? 2 easy ones. The first one is polystyrene. Have you noticed how close it is? No, I don't want to replace polystyrene, but yes, I want to have a glassy material with a TG of 100. So that's the first application. And also with the superabsorbent, the polyacrylic acid. 2 markets. Now I'll go fast. I think I'll even jump the next one. So chemicals from the Frida's bed, where after the platform basically to the 5-chloromethylfurfural, and we use a Frida's bed under special conditions. So this is, this is the uncatalyzed reaction, lots of peak, a mess. Should you use a catalysis? Very few little peaks. So we really improve the selectivity and the specificity. So that's getting very interesting. So with that, I will conclude. So basically the perspective, what I wanted to convey is for the chemicals, what we're after is the $200 chemical that have already a market. We focus on the glucose and the polyphenol as building block because these are very difficult to go from the petrochemistry, and as we use the short gas, there's less and less BTX. So here, we come here as an industry. I want to focus for application in food, biomed, and intermediate. And the name of the game, you didn't probably saw with a bit of hints, we're trying to simplify. We use green chemistry and very selective reaction, try to cut one bond at a time, and go to completion. Why? Because if I succeed, there's no purification or separation, it's much simpler. And these are extremely expensive, so we cut cost. So the second for the material, we focus on the nanocellulose. Why?
2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. It's the cheapest and most abundant organic nanoparticle, and this is the best, and this is our business. The name of the game is to decrease energy consumption and to develop application. So I didn't talk about packaging, but we do a lot of coating, spray coating, we play with nanoparticle, control the porosity, permeability, and the name. So that's for the packaging. And I show you some new type of application. And here the beauty of that is we have to cut our mentality with cell number of tons. I don't care about tons. All I care are dollars and functionality. And what I sell to my customers are functionality. The way I do that is through technology and engineering. That's really our business and partnership. But I will not sell, I'm not talking about dollar per kilos, I'm talking about performance per unit. So the specialty papers is very interesting. So I'll show you an example of bioactive paper, just hint a bit at the packaging, and also interested in changing the optical and electrical properties of paper. So with that, I present the team because I'm the director, so I didn't do much of the work. So this is, I would say, half of the team. I would like to thank the one that pays and their organization. And, oh, that's a beautiful picture. Thank you. Come and visit.
Thank you very much, Professor. Still time. You have a